Hi, pre-calculus. I thought I'd do a video on solving 2x2 systems of equations with matrices guided on Delta. Delta, I think, does a really good job at this matrices work because there's so many steps, and if you don't do a step right, then you're screwed. So by doing a guided step, it tells you if you're right every time or wrong, and so you can not do the whole problem and mess it, just one step, and then you can correct yourself. Okay, so this whole idea is solving system equations using matrices, using those row operations you did last week. So multiplying a row by a number, switching a row, adding rows together, all those different things. You have to decide what is going to help you most. Okay, so it says write an augmented matrix and use elementary row operations in order to solve the following system of equations. Your final matrix should be in reduced row echelon form. In order to get credit, you will have to have a correct final answer as accurate steps in each row operation. When it says reduced row echelon form, that means this first element is a 1, and then it's a 0. And then the next column would be 0, 1. So there's like a diagonal of ones. The rest of them are zeros, and then the last column will have your numbers or your answers. But first, it asks us to write the augmented matrix, and that's just the system of equations without variables. So -3, -4, and -4, -9, -10, and 10. Correct. So that's really nice. Each step it'll tell you if you're right or wrong. Okay, so again, my goal here is for this to become a 1 and this to become a 0. This to become a 0 and this to become a 1. So then we would have 1x equals a number, and we have 1y equals a number. So there's so many ways you can do this, and so whatever I do, if you do something different, that could still be right. Like in my last video, what I did, the first step is I just divided the first row by that first number to get a 1. And that's totally fine. You're going to have decimals. Again, totally fine. You're just going to be working with decimals. Here, I'm going to try to do it kind of like Delta would want you to do it. But again, anyway, it's fine, as long as you're doing everything correctly. All right, so this wants to be a 1, this wants to be a 0. What would be nice, this is easily multiple of 9, so what I could make this -3 a positive 9, and then I could add these together, so this would become a 0. So I might make this a 0 first. What I mean is I'm going to multiply this top row by a -3. Oh, this is not going to work. I'm going to multiply this top row by -3, and that would get me a positive 9, a positive 12, and a positive 12. So if I add this positive 9 and -9, I'm going to get a 0 here, which is what I want. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to alter row 2. So this is row 2. Alter row 2 by adding a multiple of row 1. My multiple is -3. Okay, so I wrote this blue just to help me out. So I'm adding this multiple of the row 1 to row 2 to get 0. And then -12 minus 10 or plus a -10 is 2. Positive 12 plus a 10 is 22. Cool, and it says I'm correct. Awesome. So I can, is it going to stay with that page? That's super nice. Okay. So we have a couple of different options here. I might divide this row by -3, and so I can get a 1 here. Or I see here, it's a pretty simple thing. For this to become a 1, I just need to divide this by 2, and now I would get whole numbers. So I'm going to try that. Again, my first instinct was to go here and divide all by -3, so I can get a 1. But this gets me a nice whole number, so I'm going to do that first. So I'm just going to multiply row 2 by a constant. I'm just multiplying it. I'll write it. I'm multiplying this row 2 by technically 1/2. or dividing by 2. And so I get 0 times 1/2 is still 0. 2 times 1/2 is 1, which is, I want that in that spot, so that's perfect. 1/2 times 22 is 11. So I'm not adding it to row 1, I'm simply multiplying row 2 by a constant. So this becomes what my blue is, 0, 1, 11. Beautiful. Correct. All right. So I've done a lot here. I still want to get this to become a 1. I've got this 0, which is awesome. I want this to become 0 and this to stay 1. Now, right now, it looks a little easier to do this one than divide this whole row by -3. It looks like it'd be easier at this point to get this to become 0, because all I have to do is multiply this row by 4 and add it to this one. So this would be 4 plus a -4 would be 0. That would make it a 0. Again, when I'm multiplying this second row, I'm not going to change the second row. I'm just preparing it so I can add it to row 1. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to alter row 1 by adding a multiple of row 2. Okay, I'm going to write this in pen. So I'm going to multiply this guy by 4, multiplying all this by 4, and then I'm going to add it to row 1 to change row 1. So this would become 4 times 0 would be 0, 4 times 1 would be 4, 4 times 11 would be 44. Now I'm adding it to row 1. So we got 0 plus -3 keeps our -3. 4 plus -4 is 0. 44 plus -4 is 40. Awesome. Okay, again, I could have divided by -3 first and then did this process. I just saw that it was an easy whole number situation, because if I had divided by -3 first, then I would have gotten a decimal. And then I multiply it by a decimal, which is totally fine. Decimals are not evil. They're just a little harder to work with. Okay, so I've got all of these 3 entries perfect. I just need to change this -3 to a 1, and I do that by multiplying all this by -1/3, or dividing by -3. So I'm going to do that. -1/3 by that top row. I know it's kind of hard to see, but that's to the top row. So I'm just multiplying row 1 by constant. -1/3 times -3. I'll write this here is 1. Oh, is 1. -1/3 times 0 is 0. That's why it's kind of nice. Instead of that being a 4 there, it was a 0. So it's a little easier to work with. -1/3 times 40 is not, it's a decimal for sure. Let's use it. I'm just going to write the fraction because that's easier. -40 over 3. It's my new row 1. So I've got 1, 0, -40 divided by 3. Nope, it's a 10. Enter matrix. Correct. Awesome. Now, I've gotten my 1, 0, 0, 1 here, so that means my x value is equal to -40 over 3, and my y value is equal to 11. So let's check our answer here. Yay, I did it right. So then it shows me the way delta would do it, which I think I did it the way delta would have wanted. Yeah. Okay, so if you do it decimals, then you get to at least see how maybe it was possible without getting decimals. But either way, you're awesome, and I hope this helps. Bye, pre-calcs.